Hello and welcome to The Entrepreneurial Musician, a coaching service, podcast, and blog preparing today's musicians for tomorrow's realities. This is TEM222 titled Do What Matters Now. Thank you to Parker Mouthpieces for providing the hosting for TEM. Parker Mouthpieces offers fine, customizable component mouthpieces for horn, trombone, euphonium, and tuba, including the Andrew Hitz Artist Model Tuba mouthpiece. You can find out more at parkermouthpieces.com or follow them on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So, this episode is actually going to be me reading a blog post that I had from last month that I even mentioned on the Spotted Online on TEM218, but I had a request to actually read this blog post as a part of the podcast. The blog gets some good traction, but the posts, I haven't written them regularly enough to get the same level of traffic that I do for the episodes. Someone suggested that I read this. This has gained a lot of traction, relative to my blog. This has gained a lot of traction compared to other posts, and I've gotten a lot of positive feedback about it. And someone suggested that I read this for an episode and then maybe go off script and just comment a little bit more about it. So that is exactly what I'm going to do for you now. So again, this is called Do What Matters Now. And I started it with a quote from Leo Babauta, which is, "The life you have left is a gift. Cherish it. Enjoy it now to the fullest. Do what matters now." And then I go on to say, if you aren't in love, really and truly in love with some aspect of your life or career, make a change. What are you waiting for? Far too often, I see people, myself included, continuing to do something they don't love because they lack the courage to make a change. But rest assured, anytime I am not making a change because I'm afraid of the uncertainty on the other side of it, I tell myself a great story that involves all sorts of reasons other than fear to justify it in my head. And I always believe that story too. Going off script for a second here, you would, and maybe your head is nodding along because you're like me, or maybe you think I'm crazy, but you should, when I'm afraid to do something, when I'm afraid to stop doing something, when I'm afraid to start something, when I'm afraid to share something, when I'm afraid to do anything, it is incredible the stories that my head can tell myself because I don't like to admit that I'm afraid to do something. I do sometimes have that level of self-awareness, but I'll be honest, I usually have to get there. There's like a process, and sometimes it involves other people, but I have to do some digging to be able to get to that level of honesty. If you're that level of honest, brutally honest with yourself every morning when you hop out of bed, like good for you. I'm super jealous. But that is not my story. But the story that I tell myself is always, it's like, okay, well, I've thought about this, and then, oh yeah, and then there's this, and then there's this. And I trick myself into thinking that I have thought about this from three different angles and that I've really thoroughly vetted the whole thing. And it's just best to not yet share it with the world when really I am just doing mental gymnastics to not justify, or excuse me, rather to justify not sharing the thing with the world because I'm not ready for it to flop or for you to tell me it sucks. And the only way for you to not tell me that my podcast sucks or possibly tell me my podcast sucks is if you've never heard my podcast. And the only way for that to happen is if I never started it in the first place. So now going back to the script, I can't tell you how many TEM coaching clients I've had over the years who wrestled with a decision that to me as an outsider was an obvious one. And when they finally made it, they were ecstatic they did. And I would be remiss to not point out that even though I'm someone who gets paid to help people make these kinds of decisions, that I struggle with making them myself occasionally. This is very, very true. This is why I think it's important whether you pay somebody like me to coach you, and there's a lot of options out there, or you just have people that you really trust who are going to be honest with you. right? That's the important thing. It's interesting when you give someone money to give you advice about business or your career or something like that. And I always try to be kind. Of course, criticism without compassion is cruelty, right? So, but it's actually in my financial best interest to be honest with you, because if you have a bad idea, and I think it's a bad idea. By the way, if I think it's a bad idea, it doesn't make it so. But if it's just not quite adding up, like I can't see what value you bring to the table, or yeah, that's a problem that needs solving, but I don't understand why too many people are going to think that you're the person to do it, and I gloss over that, and then you go run with the idea and it doesn't get traction, you're not going to come back to me to get more coaching sessions. So it's funny in that sense that, and I never lie to anybody on purpose, even if I'm not charging money, none of us do. But it can be hard to tell someone, actually, I don't think that's the right idea, or it's the right idea and you're not the right person to do it. But when you're paying someone, there's kind of that selfish layer where I need to be brutally honest with you. But that's also very possible if you choose the right person. It's possible without paying someone, but you have to choose the right person, and you have to tell them very clearly, have to tell them, I want you to just be completely straight with me, that you're not looking for a rubber stamp. And I think having someone, whether it's someone you pay or it's someone who you trust and who knows and understands the mission that you're on and is also able to be brutally honest with you, then it's just so vital. All right, going back to the post, Derek Sivers has a great formula for living life. He says that if it's not a bleep yes, it's a no. I've talked about this on the podcast before. If you are presented with an opportunity or considering staying in a current one, a no is obviously a no. A maybe is also a no. Derek says that even a yes is a no. The only thing he recommends you say yes to are ones that are a bleep yes. Circling back to the first quote, doing anything that I'm not fully and 100% into feels like wasting the gift that is the life that I have left. We have to do what matters today because we aren't guaranteed even one more day. There is no time like the present. I heard this when I was younger. People say that you appreciate things like how much life you have left as you get older. And I don't think I was ever unappreciative when I was younger, but I certainly acted that way. And it's kind of amazing how, as I get older, I'm 45, right? I'm a male. The males in my family don't live crazy long. Like, I actually don't have that much professional runway left. I really don't. I mean, I've been a professional now for 20 years, and I'm like approaching the halfway point of my professional career. Like it's pretty soon that there are, and I mean, geez, I might have another year left. I mean, I might be 90% of the way through. I'm saying best case scenario, I'm I'm approaching the day when I will have less days in front of me than I have behind me. That brings some clarity, let me tell you. There is no time like the present. This is, of course, an oversimplification. There are lots of reasons to not simply cut loose an aspect of your portfolio, career, or your life in general, especially during a pandemic. Health insurance, shelter, food on the table, stability for yourself or your family. None of these are optional. But even while checking these vital boxes, we all have more control over how we choose to spend our precious time than we sometimes realize. This is a point that I've seen made over and over again in the books that have had the biggest impact on me. It's also a point I've seen the people I look up to model repeatedly through their actions. I think that that is a point that I need to have hammered home repeatedly, which is that I have a lot of leeway. And also, there's a good chance that I have more leeway to make drastic decisions than you do. If you're listening to this and saying, I don't have that much leeway, let me be super clear. I'm not telling you that you do. I'm telling you that myself, this is true, and most of the people, if not all the people I've ever worked with for TEM coaching, And all the people I know at some point in life realized that they actually had more control over some of the smaller stuff and sometimes even some of the bigger stuff than they realized. And that's the point, is that there are some people who have a long runway, right? There is a big safety net, whether it's their parents or their family, even as they get later into life. And so like really failing and falling on their face looks very different than someone who does not have that safety net, right? For someone who doesn't have a safety net, like fully failing means being homeless. There are some people who that's not the case. I'm not saying that everybody is created equal. I am saying that the vast majority of people that I have either worked with or who I have known or who I've worked with in the client or the mentee role have realized at some point in their lives that they have more control over a lot of the decisions and the direction in their career than they thought while it was happening. Going back to the script here. In my professional career, I've quit 4 college teaching jobs and 2 professional brass quintets. And every single time it was a good decision for me and for them. Anyone reading this is busy just like me. Anytime we say yes to anything, we are by definition saying no to other things. I know that's a point I've made many times on TEM, but anytime that I say yes to anything, I am saying no to other things. I got tomorrow night. I am doing a TEM coaching for a high school trumpet player who emailed me, and this email from this young man was remarkable. It was awesome. He attended the Brass Junkies trumpet workshop. He was knocked out by it. He said he had recently discovered the Brass Junkies podcast and said that he's like binge listening to like every single episode, and he has decided that he wants to start a podcast and that he was looking to have to get some advice from me, and he wanted to purchase an hour of my time, but he saw my lesson rate and said that he can't come close to affording that, and he offered me like $50, I think it was. He said I could do like $50, but I completely understand that that's not your hourly rate, and so I just wanted you to know, regardless, that I'm a huge fan of what you do. I wrote back to him and told him, I said, well, I've got some bad news. I said my consulting rate is like a lot more than my than my lesson rate is, because I help people make money. You can charge a lot for that. And I said, but because of how thoughtful his email was, it was really thoughtful, and the fact that he offered to pay me, I told him that if he donated it to the charity I'm on the board of directors for, the Mockingbird Foundation, if he donated that $50 to Mockingbird, that I would give him an hour of TEM coaching in exchange for that. That's tomorrow night. I've got a long day tomorrow, and there's a lot of Pedal Note Media stuff that is like burning a fire under me right now. There's a lot of stuff that I have to do before my colleagues can do what they need to do, and I would normally be doing other work that hour. That's important to me because that is a young person who took an initiative and sent me a very thoughtful, just an awesome email. Like that is exactly how you network. And so I decided, yes, even though I am slammed busy right now, I am carving out that hour because with full knowledge that I can't do anything else during that hour. But that's different than just saying yes to absolutely everybody. If I had received 15 emails like his last week, then I would not be able to say yes to all 15. I'm homeschooling. I'm not actually homeschooling. He's in school, but it's all online, and my wife is teaching, so I'm practically homeschooling a first grader who's in Spanish immersion, and I don't speak Spanish. Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts here, and there's a good chance if you're listening to this right now in the middle of this pandemic that your life is harder than mine is. So if it's a competition, I probably won't win, but my life is pretty hard right now. And yet I said yes. So, but that was intentional. So, but saying yes to something that you like but don't love, or to something that doesn't have much impact on the world, is saying no to doing more important work with the limited amount of time you have left on this earth. I am trying to live that for considering Monday evening, but also like the bigger picture. That's why I recently left a job that I really liked, and yet it was taking enough time, and I didn't feel like the impact justified the amount of time, because I was sitting on a lot of other things that I think are going to impact the world, and I would argue already are impacting the world in a larger way than that job was, or I should be more specific, than I was executing that job. So that just to be clear. Back to the script, which has got a paragraph left. It's a cliche, but this isn't a dress rehearsal. We only get one crack at this. That's why I am constantly trying to evaluate my priorities and always trying to have the courage to make difficult decisions. Those decisions will never end in my career and in life, so all I can do is face them, because putting off a difficult decision becomes a decision in and of itself. Do what matters now. So that was the blog post. I was inspired to write that. I wrote that a little over a month ago now, and like I said, there's a lot of people who have said some really nice things about that. That job that I just left, it's like I just took a big pay cut, like in the middle of a pandemic when all of my gigs are canceled. In a lot of ways, it doesn't really make sense. My best friend Russell left a really high paying job in his industry to go at it alone on the internet as a freelance coach, and he's killing it. But like he took the plunge, and he's happy every single day that he did it. Um, so if you don't take the plunge, then you end up sticking around in a situation that you're not happy in. Now, most of you, I'm guessing, are like me, where you have a portfolio career. So you've got like, 4, 8, 12, 14 things happening. Although, if you're like me, a number of those have literally stopped for the time being because the world is upside down. And when slash if those come back remains to be seen. So that can make it even scarier to stop one of those income streams. But I am already gaining traction with all these live events that we are doing through Pedal Note Media Academy, which right now is brass centric, although there's about to be a bunch of TEM ones. There's also something called Winning the Audition, which we already did one of with the principal trumpeter of the LA Phil. That's about to expand in a whole bunch of directions. And it's all time that I would not have had if I had stayed in that teaching job. Yeah, it was a hard choice, but it was the right choice for me and for the job, I think, because they're going to get somebody, I'm sure, that's great. So anyway, do what matters and do it now, because the life that we have left is a gift, and we've got to act that way. All right. Well, thank you very much for listening to TEM. Thank you very much for everybody who's left a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get TEM, and simply for your attention, the most valuable commodity any of us have to give. TEM is produced by Will Houchin and is a part of the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network. The theme music for TEM is played by three unbelievable musicians: Ben Barron, Rich Kelly, Daniel Lapel, and I got to hang out on the tuba part. For show notes, the TEM blog, and to learn more about TEM coaching, please visit our new website, tem.fm. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and please subscribe to our brand new YouTube channel. And that's going to do it for another episode of The Entrepreneurial Musician.